Hey folks, Dr. Tom Diamond here from the Quiet Mind Company. I'd like to share with you a really exciting interview today with Dr. Evian Gordon. I just got off the Zoom call with him, and he's in his office in San Francisco, and we talked about his special instrument for measuring and improving brain performance. He's got a great 20-minute test and an app chock full of tools, meditation, biofeedback, daily habits, all sorts of good stuff. I'm going to adopt his tool into my system. It's so exciting. It's so great. So please welcome Dr. Evian Gordon.
Sure. Thank you, Tom. And it's a great pleasure to be here and just very interested in Quiet Mind because of its integrative approach. So perhaps I can speak to why I came to an integrative approach in the brain. My PhD was in serum lipids in the heart. And loved my journey through the science degrees and through medicine, but I was serendipitously introduced to the fossils of human evolution that we've trebled in brain size over the past 5 million years, from Australopithecus to Homo habilis to Homo erectus to us. And I gave up my cardiology trajectory and switched to the brain and got a job at Westmead Hospital in Sydney, which is the largest hospital in the Southern Hemisphere. It's the catchment area for about 10% of the population of Australia. And by a quirk of luck, I got to be the founding director of the Brain Dynamics Center there. And the CEO decided to just support me in this idea of bringing together people from across disciplines and to put together a kind of a standardized database, but also looking at the applied ways where insights from a standardized database that includes, cognition, genetics, electrical brain function, EEGs, ERPs, MRI, DTIs, fMRIs, and a lot of psychometrics.
That must have been very, very exciting early in your career to get that kind of support and that kind of data sample. I mean, that's massive.
Well, no, I had to set it all up. So then I spent 2 years traveling the world, getting the standardized pieces from all the key opinion leaders that I could find around the world, at Harvard and Stanford, everywhere.
We closed for a second on Zoom. So I just wanted to come back to that point because it sounded so interesting. And like, your whole face lit up. Like this is a central passion for you, how the brain.
Well, it is. It was like a massive revelation. Like after I'd finished, thanks to Darwin, and he was obviously the best example I ever saw of an integrationist, with his little stick tree figure, he said, all species are interconnected. I mean, what more integrative thought than that? So that was my guiding light for the database.
The original integrationist.
Oh, he is the best and most influential and most long-lasting. It's kind of surreal for me, like the dots are joining everywhere. And I have to say, even seeing Quiet Mind, for reasons that I'll show you, it's a kind of integrative ethos that
that's my purpose as well. And by the way, I just wanted to say I listened to your podcast. Beverly sent me your podcast with the great-great-grandson. What was his name again?
Chris Darwin and David Whitehouse.
Whitehouse, yes. And that was a fascinating podcast. It's so fascinating to draw all this integrative, cutting edge work back to Darwin and the history and the.
Well, just as an exemplar for us, Tom, the exemplar to me of Darwin, rather than his theory, I mean, because it's huge implications for biology, but the exemplar that if you put information together on scale, and in my case, I foresaw that it needs to be standardized so that you can actually see what's working, in whom, and how you might use it. That he was an example, a kind of golden light on the hill as to what you can achieve with enough data, with the right bandwidth of information. So we've got ways where we can share with you the manner in which you might be empowered with some of the insights. But the essence of it all today is that this platform is really, this mental health and performance platform to self-monitor and self-care is the kind of integrative sort of arrow in the spear that is underpinned by this database, informed by it, and of course by the scientific literature generally. But we've now got
self-monitoring is really that key that's so powerful, and that really, I think, empowers people to take their health into their own hands. And you and the whole field of biofeedback, are bringing amazing tools that really puts power into people's hands. And then you add this extra power pack punch by having a massive database that you can do the research on, and you can pull out those gold nuggets of what really makes a difference in health. And in my case, what really makes a difference in anxiety and sleep improvement.
Exactly.
And you're discovering that now. You're going to keep discovering that as you go into the future. So it's a really exciting wave that you're on, and that and tools of empowerment that you're bringing to clients. And that's what excites me so much about Total Brain.
Yeah, so that's spot on what you're saying, Tom. The issue of, firstly, the assessment of your 12 key brain capacities, the emotions, the fraction of a second evaluation of cues, your feelings, where your body changes with different sort of consequences of those emotions, your cognition, your memory, your attention, your planning, and your self-regulation, how well you are bringing it all together and how resilient you are in that light. That simple model, and having people evaluate themselves on a regular basis so they can see the extent, Tom, in which they are shifting. It's like I always say to everyone, it's like having a mirror in a sense. It's a mirror of your core brain capacities. When you look at the assessment, not only do you get your 12 capacities, but you get a snapshot of where are you with respect to your mental health challenges, whether it's anxiety, depression, ADHD, PTSD, sleep, all of those are in the mental health screen.
So you have an early warning system.
Early warning system, exactly. But also the
beautiful.
realization, Tom, in an integration point of view, that if you look at a normal distribution curve, which was my sort of big learning from Darwin, look at the entire picture. Mental health conditions on the left, deficits, increased stress, poor coping, negativity enhancement. In the middle, well-being, a good balance. And on the right-hand side, peak performers.
We think of mental health in this box.
Exactly.
And it's sort of like, if you have a mental health issue, you're broken. You're in the box, you're broken. And no one wants to be in that box. It's stigmatizing, it's confining, it's depressing.
And the power of labels to make people feel worse. Like, what? Seriously? What are we thinking?
And they don't help.
No.
And it's not true.
It's not true is the more important thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think what you're saying is so spot on. And I come to it, and my colleagues come to it from different paths, but I think we're all coming to this realization that, there's mental capacity, there's mental strength, there's mental skill. And on one end, if you're getting into trouble, those skills aren't working so well. Then there's sort of this middle normal health, and then there's really pushing the envelope on focus, on intelligence, on spiritualism, and pushing the edge of human potential. All of it's connected, and all of it's about skill and actualization, not about being broken or fixed.
Beautiful.
So limiting. That's duality is so limiting. We need this continuum thinking, I think, to really help people push into the high end of happiness and performance and love and emotion and all that we are, and at the pinnacle of evolution that humankind has come to, and is still going forward, still growing.
Well, I hope you're recording this, because I want to put that on our site as well. But that's beautifully articulated and a great conceptual thing, and it's reflected in Quiet Mind. Having such a scalable, easy to do, regular assessment of the brain's capacities, coupled with the screen of mental health, to be able to do that regularly is such a wonderful way that if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, to empower people with their own insight about how does stress affect. For example, the key way I always encourage people to look at their capacity scores is, how is stress affecting you? Stress and anxiety. How is stress and anxiety affecting you? As a brain, 85 billion highly interconnected brain, mind, soul person. What's the relationship? Are you befriending your brain and becoming comfortable with your reality, and how your
awareness
stress
is
and
key,
anxiety, awareness is key.
Yeah.
Awareness is the most empowering thing we have. But, and it's not a small but, as you know, Tom, the biggest gap is between knowing and doing. So when it comes to the doing, whatever it is, whether it's the tools I'm going to share with you, what we do, or whether it's your tools, which I'd love to hear about now for a few minutes, just so we can converge and see how they might be synergistic. But whatever it is, Tom, or whether it's a medication, it doesn't matter. Whatever works for people is what matters. I would love to hear for just a couple of minutes or however long you want, of course, what are the tools you use? And then I'll tell you the tools we use.
For me, the road to happiness is all about inner peace. It's all about finding a deep connection within ourself, that where you come to this sense of eternal confidence, eternal happiness, eternal wisdom. And I think it's always there. I come to that place through a psychological road, also through assessment and research, and also through meditation. My first sense of coming to what I define as happiness was when I was 15. I got sick. I got this virus that put me in bed for 6 months. I couldn't go to school, couldn't do anything. Doctors didn't know what it was. They couldn't identify any particular bug. I went to all sorts of naturopaths and tried all sorts of different diets and health foods and supplements. Nothing worked, nothing at all. It wouldn't budge. And so I was declining. I was 15, supposedly in an exciting time of growth and happiness and friends. All that was dying for me. And I was wasting away in bed. And one day, a little switch clicked and I started to meditate. I spontaneously found this technique where I started to move my fingers very slowly at a hypnotic speed. And I discovered self-hypnosis through a body movement. And it got me out of my head. It got me out of those racing thoughts. It got me out of that inability to sleep and rest, and suddenly drop into this deep, content, calm place where I started to rest. And I finally started to sleep better, and I got better quality sleep. And then I started to heal. And then I started to get up and start moving around. And I started to make my body move. So from that very profound early self-healing experience, I realized, there's this place inside of us that where there's amazing self-healing powers. And so I became very, very interested in how to give that same clarity on health and happiness to other people. And that's what led me into psychology. And it also got me very, very objective. It got me very interested in research, because the numbers don't lie. The numbers don't fool. The numbers help you understand when you're getting closer to a real target as opposed to a wishful thinking. Very, very excited, and I'm already seeing results with some clients on integrating the assessment, biofeedback, and meditation. And those are, I think, going to be my primary tools for the time being. And all delivered within a coaching platform, which gives me the opportunity to connect with people very frequently, not just once a week, but in text messages. So there's ongoing feedback from and support from a coach that can help with that daily habit formation and transformation. So long-winded response to your question.
No, that's a sort of masterclass in summarizing where the field is going, Tom. The reality is that we want to start off with the tools that are most simple, that are most scalable. But the reality is, in behavior change, it is no longer just about behavior. It is about brain behavior change. And so there's a thirst, there's a yearning now, as this has become tractable, to measure the heart, measure the brain. It is brain, not just behavior. We learned that lesson from 1924 onwards, that the limits of behavioral alone, where you try and exclude the brain, is not close, even close to getting, closer to the mechanism, the more powerful the impact. Now, as you know, there's a lot of wishful thinking science in the way music entrains the brain. I've been working on integrative theory of music and brain frequency, EEG data, for quite a while. And he's deploying that model in a very simple and systematic manner, and handed over a wonderful module to Total Brain, and our developers just did such a wonderful job. So that's Neurotune. So there's an example where you could add Neurotunes into any of the both stress reduction tools and breath tools and biofeedback, HRV biofeedback, but frankly, even some of the neurofeedback. So that's one small starting point of the first leg, if you like, which is the
I just
the
want to
HRV
comment
breath
on
tools.
that before you go further, because that the whole brain entrainment field is wonderful, and this is something I've been extremely interested in and have integrated in my office treatments quite a bit. So I built this sound massage chair.
I saw that. Wow, it looked amazing.
It really is, and it's one of the most favorite popular treatments of my clients. They jump in this chair, they crank up the volume, and the whole chair hums and vibrates with a very, very complex background that uses very deep vibration. So the whole chair is, it's got this sort of logging truck rumble to it that is quite relaxing. But at the same time, embedded within the soundtrack is the entrainment to slow brainwaves, delta, beta, and alpha.
And the addition of vibration is just so cool with the sound. I mean, it doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, and it gets right into your joints and your skull and your heart and your lungs, and it's really dramatic, and people love it. At the same time, it's, without them really knowing it, it's subtly, these subliminal delta, theta, alpha frequencies subtly train the brain to slow down.
Exactly right.
The sleepy, relaxing trance state. I got to say, out of all my tools, it's certainly the most popular, and it may be one of the most effective. Surprisingly so to me, because I thought, okay, here's this, I'm going to add this nice relaxation component. And suddenly, all my fibromyalgia patients are going, oh my God, my pain is disappearing. All my insomnia patients are saying, my God, I went home and I had the best sleep of my life. I just have to underline how powerful sound is. And I'm so very happy that you have NeuroTunes embedded in your
suite. No, I think and I saw your chair. It looks unbelievable. And funny enough, a friend of mine who's a pain specialist and neuroscientist, he built a not a chair, but he just did a box that you put on the sounds, and then you put a vibration box. And he says his patients call it the bliss box. And I went, yep, it is. And I've tried it. It's like, whoa, yeah, this is the bliss box. The second pillar is meditation. So there are meditation tools from the Art of Living, from Sri Ravi Shankar, that Louis Gagnon has brought across with Johan Berlin, who's the CEO of TLEX, which is part of the Art of Living. And our development team, thanks to our amazing COO, pulls all the pieces together, developed and helped digitize these tools. So meditation, there's a number of meditation tools in there. And why they were thinking about as well is because when you add the breath tools, this range of breath tools, starting with Mycom Beat, but then adding alternative nostril breathing when you want to boost your energy, victory breath when you want to increase, or when you want to connect your two hemispheres with alternative nostril breathing, victory breath when you want to increase your energy. These are old yogic tools that have been selected, optimized, and beautifully explained, and combine nicely with the meditation. So that convergence of breath and meditation. So that's the second piece. And by the way, we will be bringing out pretty soon a heart rate variability product for the phone. So you just stick your finger behind the light, measures your heart rate variability. So that's coming pretty soon, actually. So that could be another starting point. But we'll be doing continuous heart rate variability by the end of the year. There'll be pilot studies already by then. So, and the third pillar is simply online cognitive behavior therapy. We have a wonderful little cognitive behavior therapy tool called Thought Tamer. And what the beauty there is, Tom, is it's faithful to the principles of CBT, of cognitive behavior therapy. It's got, looking at the same 5 thinking traps that were done in the 1980s when this was discovered at the University of Pennsylvania. The catastrophizing, black and white thinking, should statements, could statements, jumping to conclusions, and it challenges those thoughts that we all have to some degree and helps people online. This is not a clinical platform, it's clinical support. So they deliberately light versions, and people can find a good way to learn about CBT, just challenge their natural thoughts. And then if they need to, if they're obviously depressed, this is a highly confidential platform. They can choose to share their scores and stuff with their therapist. That's relevant to your sleep product, where when we worked with Ron Grunstein and the data we have, we just saw for ourselves, using the same assessment, we saw, Tom, the amazing deficits in capacity that sleep challenges have. And we can see how combining the stress additional tools we might bring to this integration you have, the breath tools. Before you go to sleep, put yourself into a better frame of mind using both the meditation, the sleep, but also strategies of dealing with your negative thoughts if you get woken up, like the CBT light. There's a convergence that personalized exploration, it's all about, as you know, people finding what works for them. I would like to end off on one thing from my point of view, Tom, and that is where I said to you, it's about the how. One of the deepest things to me as we bring these pieces together, and as I say, this convergence potentially between total brain and quiet mind, is the how. How do you deal with your 50,000 thoughts in the moment? So I love carrying around this little pebble. It's just a little pebble, 50,000 it says. And the reason is, Tom, to me, the highly interconnected brain, 85 billion highly interconnected neurons. To me, any thought that we have, the idea of entrainment is not spurious. It's not some sort of la-la land idea. It is for real. You throw that pebble into the brain, a thought, it's like throwing a pebble into the water. How do I actually do this in the moment without just feel like I'm going through the motions to break that negative thought? And how many of my 50,000 thoughts can I switch from negative to positive, from problem focus to solution focus, or just even a more positive vibe of I'm going to be present. That's it. And I'm going to show gratitude at the end of my day. You practice presence and gratitude. And so to me, that's the one level. And then last but not least is, okay, for the longer term, how do I rewire my brain and create neural networks? Like, the brain at that level of training new networks is like a muscle. Neural networks that wire together. So if you are not granular and targeted and specific, you're not going to build a specific neural network that works for you. That's all I got.
Wow, that's a lot. My 50,000 thoughts are bursting after chatting with you, and it's so interesting to me the overlap in our world, where you land with all of this, with this mountain of knowledge that you're taking from all sorts of disciplines and bring it down to the moment. I think that's beautiful. I mean, I think that is where our power as puny human beings on our dust mote of a planet in this massive universe, our power is in the moment. That's all we really have. But it's very, very powerful. It gives us access and control and power to influence those 50,000 thoughts, because in the moment is that center of the ripple, the center of those concentric circles. But we are right in the middle of those circles. And if we take control of the moment, I think that's where our power is. There's a very good friend of mine who is a jazz musician who always talked about expanding the note and being on the back end of the note or the front end of the note. And what she said was that being a musician, it trained her to expand her awareness of the moment. And it got very, very big. And she realized that there isn't just a moment. There's a middle of the moment. There's a start of the moment. There's an end of the moment. And the more you develop your self-awareness, the bigger that moment becomes, and the more accessible it becomes to your control, your conscious ability to choose positive, to choose negative, to choose power, passivity. All of human experience becomes leverageable to our conscious control when we increase our awareness of the moment. And this is what I think meditation does. This is what I think self-monitoring does of heart rate variability. This is even what QEG, neurofeedback, does, what self-assessment does. Even though it takes 20 minutes, you really are expanding your awareness of the moment when you sit down and you reflect and you answer questions and you think about self. And this is what all the spiritual sages of eons gone by, I think this is what the key that they were all unlocking is this awareness of the moment and expanding it. Our human potential, that's where it is. I love how all of these vastly elaborate tools are leading back to a very, very simple experience and potential that every human being can tap, can learn the skills to get better at. That brain, that's why we can do it. Without that brain, we wouldn't be able to explore the moment, would we?
My model is the human brain. Every home should have one. Yep.
I love
Well,
it.
it's wonderful. Wonderful to speak to you, Tom.
Oh, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your time and energy. It's very inspiring. Help me and my viewers understand some more about this amazing mystery we have in our heads that we're just beginning to unlock with leading lights like yourself. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Tom. Speak to you soon.
Okay. Have a good
Thanks a
day.
lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye. You too. Bye.